People that have had sex with someone with a disability. What was different about the experience? Story 1. Off and on dated a blind gal in college. Doing it was lots of fun but had to make sure her dog was in the room but unable to reach, assist. Without being too explicit, the dog took a few times to get used to her orgasm without being distressed, and we had to stick to fun in the bed or he would be a tripping hazard. I also took a few elbows to the nose as we adjusted in the bed before we learned to talk a bit more, and that it made sense for her to pretty much keep a hand on the back of my neck, forearm, so she could kiss me when she wanted to rather than just me having that luxury. Best advice I can say is after you get the nervous first time out of the way, spend a good long time just establishing touch intimacy so your blind partner can know their way around you. That and gain consent for each new area. Touching BC body language is so critical in avoiding surprises. She also loved sensory play with ice cubes. That's everything I can think of. We didn't work out BC. She couldn't see herself with me in the long run, but mostly BC I wanted to travel and move, and she had some understandable anxiety about that, which wasn't a priority for her. I told her using a pun to break it off was the best way to get bad news. Edit. Obligation for THX on the award. Now my alt seriously outweighs my primary karma, and I don't talk to my ex much anymore but other people in a mixed site, not couple. It seems like there would be some good fact of life questions for Anama. I know we had some quirks just from a few months. Story 2. I'm in a wheelchair from a spinal cord injury when I was 17. In college, I met a girl who was also in paraplegic as well as having a traumatic brain injury that left her with some memory and speech issues. We spent a lot of time with each other as part of a disabled students group, hanging in our dorms because our rooms were accessible. She had been injured when she was just 7 and her overprotective parents had kept her very sheltered. She eventually got comfortable enough with me to confide that she had never been intimate with a guy before. That led to us kissing and exploring her sexuality. It was awkward and comical at times for a paraplegic guy to be sexing a paraplegic girl, but mostly it was very intimate and lots of fun. I knew about urological stuff and could identify with her concerns with body image issues so she could relax with me and be at ease. We went slow and she gradually got more comfortable and came to like having someone look at her body, not in a medical way, but with sexual desire. Lots of discoveries for us as we went along, trying everything. Stuff like finding that using a wand and oral was able to get her to have multiple orgasms in a row. A really special moment for both of us. We spent the better part of a year just playing with each other's bodies. It was great. She went on to date and have relationships and eventually got married. We still keep in touch on Facebook and I'm really happy for her. Story 3. For 2 years I dated a girl with ovarian cancer. Not a disability actually, but a condition. Those who don't know, it means she was infertile. I knew this before we started dating, so every time we made love, she would cry afterwards. I tried to make her feel that it was okay, but it's really hard even for a strong human being like her. In the morning she acted like all was fine, but I knew how much she was still hurting. Suddenly her situation started deteriorating. She developed a lot of other complications. On a routine visit, the doctor told us that she had only 4 months left. That's when I cried, and she told me it was okay. Then she asked me to break up. She said she didn't want me to go through all that would follow. She moved out and started living with her parents. I can proudly say that she was the stronger person BWN is. She made the decisions in our relationship, so I couldn't oppose her. She lived for 6 more months. I was hoping that somehow she might make it. But one morning her dad called me to say that she had passed away in her sleep. Jane, wherever you are, you'll be my beacon forever. Hey guys, are you enjoying the video? If so, please like and subscribe as it really helps out the channel. Anyways, back to the stories. Story 4. I've posted this before, but it's a nice story. A few years ago I hooked up with this girl who worked at my local pharmacy. She was smoking hot, petite, with a gorgeous smile. She also had a deformed arm. Not quite a T-Rex arm, but a very slender arm ending in a couple of very tiny nubs where her fingers would have been. I got to know her and then asked her out and we went on a couple of dates. She was moving overseas so she didn't want anything serious and I was fine with that. Doing it was awesome, just pure animalistic rutting. Like 2 monkeys fricking for their species, we did it everywhere. One weekend I was chilling at her house and we got a little drunk and high. Then we started getting down with the nastiness and she asked me if she could play with my butt. I was fine with butt play and off she went. She was amazing, doing all kind of funky things like milking my prostate and such. I never knew I'd really get into that sort of thing, but it was great. Then she said, "I'm going to try something, baby. Just relax." That's when I felt something bigger than a few fingers getting stuffed into my bunghole. It was girthier, but it felt pretty neat, so I closed my eyes and relaxed as she did her magic. Then I heard her say, "This is so cool." and I looked down. She'd inserted her deformed arm inside me up to about halfway up her forearm. To cut a long story short, that's how we both discovered a certain fetish. She moved away a few months later, but it was fun while it lasted. Story 5. Frick it, not what you asked necessarily, but I'll follow suit and talk about doing it with someone with schizophrenia and sexsomnia. Not a missing leg, but interesting nonetheless. I would do it with my ex-BF and he would just shut off. I didn't know what was happening at the time, but he would see or hear things that freaked him out or took him out of the mood. He would just shut down and lay there quietly. I would lay there with him and ask him what's wrong. Very strange to go from 80 to 0 and your BF to just lay there quietly, and still. It would happen when we were out to dinner too. He would literally just stop talking to me and we'd have to eat in silence for the rest of the date. Now he also has sexsomnia, and that was by far the weirdest. I woke up and he was grasping my mound with a super freaking hard fist with the fingers pressed to my vagina over my clothes. I call this the vagina claw. First of all folks, this is a weird freaking SX move. I was perplexed why XBF would pull this freaking weird move if he wanted to wake up and frick. No kissing on the neck, no dick nudges, just vagina claw. Single hand move with no other contact. Second, the intensity. He was using all his force on this vagina claw move and it was freaking bizarre. I tried to move him away, but he seemed to really wanting to do it apparently, so I maneuvered and started blowing him. Well, he woke up and he looked at me like I had two heads, wondering why the frick I was giving him a BJ when he was trying to sleep. Like I started this whole crap. We went back to bed. He's tried to initiate intercourse a couple times and has zero memory of it. Took it a while to click. Edit. I'm not gonna lie, I am proud of my vagina claw story and I secretly wanted an award. Thank you. Story 6. Back in the 80 seconds I worked with a lady who was in her mid 40 seconds. We worked in the same area, so we took all our breaks together, had the same hours, stuff like that. After a few months of this, she asked me over to her house to fix a few things. There's a 25-year age gap between us, but I was kinda getting the feeling that she, divorced with 2 daughters, was maybe needing some man time. Young man time, even. So I cleaned some gutters and painted a few things. She cooked a nice meal. We had a few beers. Next thing you know, she's in my lap. We lose the clothes and bam, there it is, my first bald vagina. I am freaking psyched. This is a game changer. I wanna run outside and tell everyone about it. How cool it looks exposed like that. I mean, I don't, but when you're 20 you have thoughts like that. So, I go downtown and commence to tongue lash the hell out of that shiny vagina, and we frick like teenagers. After a smoke and a beer, I'm ready for round 2, and I wanna dog style this girl. After months of looking at her long legs and nice butt, yeah, it's what I want. To this point I'm just rolling with it. I'm not thinking why this vagina might be bald. There's no stubble like girl legs get, but that's not registering. I'm just in awe of this perfect vagina. So we're getting serious and I'm kinda sorta probing her butthole with my left thumb, testing the waters for later, see what kind of reaction I get. She presses back, liking the pressure, and right then and there I do it. I make my fatal mistake. I reach up with my right hand to grab her head. I'm going to twist my fingers up in her hair and pound out another nut. And the freaking hair comes off in my hand, like, the whole hair. She jumps up and cries out, grabs her hair out of my hand and runs off to the bathroom. Click, door locks. I lay back, exasperated, knowing full well the fricking is likely done for the night. And I was so close on that good second nut. She comes out and back to bed, eyes all puffy and sniffling. I'm still laying there trying to process all this new information. The smooth shiny vagina, the fact that 45-year-old girls are still horn dogs, and the last part, the why did her hair come off in my hand part. She tells me her story, and I admit I forgot some of the specifics, but back in the 40 seconds and 50 seconds there were things like rheumatism and scarlet fever and strange childhood diseases like that. Autoimmune stuff. And she got one of them and it took every hair from her body. Every hair, forever, no growing back. Like, no eyebrows or anything. Up until that point I figured she just liked plucking the crap out of her brows like a lot of women do. And she was naturally embarrassed by it and couldn't tell me beforehand. She just figured on letting me find out to see how I reacted. Other than surprised, it didn't bother me. She eventually got comfortable enough to walk around bald in front of me. Mind you, Kojak and Yulbrenner were about the only 2 famous bald people around. Uncle Fester, I guess, but you get the point. Not popular. We had fun for a few months and drifted apart. I got a new job and she found a guy her age. It was for the best, as settling down was not on my to-do list. Never did tell her how magnificent that vagina first looked to me. It was like a whole new world opening up. Story 7. I had a one-night stand with a paraplegic woman from Tinder. She had lost the use of her legs due to MS. The disease also made the skin from her knees down painfully sensitive, so I had to make sure I didn't even brush up against them. She wore stockings over them. They had a mildly unpleasant odor. She found that her muscles were more flexible when she was high, so she said she was pretty much super stoned all of the time. This made our conversations a little more giggly and spacey. The rest of her body was normal and really beautiful. The kissing was sublime. She had sensitive nipples. She loved to give BJS. I swear she had my junk in her mouth for a solid hour, all in different positions where she didn't have to move much. When normally we might have moved on to freaking. There were a couple of problems. I wasn't super hard after all of that sucking, and I was a little nervous about being gentle enough with her legs. And the smell. Second problem was that her hips were so stiff, I couldn't get her legs apart. She said, just rip them open. But I felt like they were going to snap. So I gently fingered and kissed her and watched her masturbate with a toy she brought. Looking back, the hottest part of the whole thing was getting her in and out of my hotel room. She was really good looking and wore a skimpy little dress. I met her at her car, helped her into her chair, and wheeled her in through the lobby past the front desk. And then a few hours later, I wheeled her back out, packed her back into her car, and sent her off. It turned me on to think about us using each other purely as sex objects. Somehow the wheelchair enhanced that. The front desk clerks knew exactly what I was doing wheeling this sexy little toy in and out. She was, as one might expect, bummed about the progression of her disease. We laid and talked for a while about our lives. She loved doing it with strangers because it made her forget her disease for a while and feel normal. She also wished she had a long-term partner, but felt no one would love someone who was only going to get sicker. I disabused her of that notion as best I could, truly believing that there was surely someone out there who would just love and adore her so much for her personality that they wouldn't even care about her legs or disease. I think she believed me. Her stoned haze seemed to clear a bit during that part of the pillow talk. Story 8. Did it with two women who were deaf. Nothing crazy, they were aware of the loud noises they could make, and did everything in their power to muffle themselves. Next up, a woman who was wheelchair-bound due to a surgery and going through therapy. She was a great frick, and really just wanted someone to see her sexually. Gave great blowjobs. Also 55. Did it with a blind woman. Nothing too crazy, she had been around the block a few times so she knew her way around a dick. She was kind of an alcoholic though. I think that's about it. Can't remember much else that was interesting. I mean, disability covers a lot of categories, and barring folks with missing limbs, it's really hard to pick which fits and doesn't. For example, people with heart or hearing problems. Obese people. Mental disabilities. Speaking of mental disabilities, I did it with two women in that area. Nothing of note there. One was blah, the other gave great BJS. Story 9. Not really a disability, more medical condition. But as it was mostly untreated, it became a disability. X had diabetes and a crap diet, no exercise. I didn't know much about it at the time, but it was tricky in many ways. I don't know if it's the same for others, but manifested like this for him. When his sugar went low, he'd be stuck in the mood. Thought he was in before he went low. Unfortunately, it was 9/10 negative. He'd get an odd smell and I'd try to get him to take sugar to bring it back up. He acted like a drunk person and would argue that he was fine, almost to the point of violence. I'd have to beg him to check his sugar or eat something. Happened a few times while doing it, slip into a nap and I'd wake up to a clammy slug soaking the bed with the weird sweats. He also wanted me to be on top a lot, but every time I did he'd kinda lose his erection. I did read later, if you're not looking after yourself there isn't enough blood flow lying down. Nothing against diabetics in general, but I hated feeling like his mom and badgering him to look after himself. Story 10. I have cerebral palsy, a relatively mild case. I rock a mean limp and have the worst balance, but I do alright otherwise. I'm looking toward 40 now and I've maintained a pretty regular, healthy SX life throughout my late teens and on. Obviously I have some limitations. I'm not picking anyone up or putting a foot up on the wall. Basically nothing balance intensive. I've had some experiences better than others. I've had some memorable interactions and exchanges after. People are a lot more comfortable talking about my disability and their expectations once the deed is done. I've had the same partner off and on for a decade or so now, so I must be doing something right. I read through a lot of these comments given the relevance of the question. The one thing I think people are missing is that disability or no sexual intercourse is better with some than others. Once you find the right person and know their wants and needs, it won't matter if they are literally a stump with hard on. The intercourse will be unforgettable. Story 11. My first girlfriend is blind. Aside from the fact that she majorly enjoyed touching and all sorts of physical stuff, the way she performed aura is different. Unlike most who lie on their stomach or their side, she'd sit with one knee bent up and the other crossed in front of her, and she'd brace herself with one arm whilst doing the deed. From my perspective, it looked awkward as hell and uncomfortable. However, she maintained that position without any complaint and could do what she needed to do. I talked with her about it. She shrugged and said it worked for her. She attempted once to try it a normal way, but she said that felt unnatural to her. Everything else was par for course. Well, except for one thing. She just could not make a sexy face since she had zero frame of reference. First time she made one, I had no idea what she was doing. I was horribly confused. We talked, clarified, and just stated it'd be so much easier if she talked with me. And goddamn, she could make some sexy talk since that was her primary form of communication. She had no problems vocalizing, asking, telling what she wanted. Truly never felt the least bit ashamed with her. Broke up due to crazies, but damn, fun times. Hey guys, just found out you watched till the end. That is awesome. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories.